December 13th council briefing. We have 3 items on the agenda tonight that we would like to go over with you. The first one is going to be an annual update on the paid parking program. And here to kick that off for us is Commander Eric Shaughnessy. Eric, take it away.
All right, thank you, Mr. Staffopoulos. Good evening, everybody. So just a quick overbrief operationally from the police department on the paid parking. This was our 3rd year using SP Plus as the vendor for paid parking. In my opinion, I think the chief will agree, very, very smooth year this year. Everything that went on and coming out 2020, very smooth year. And I think the numbers show that. So this year ran, as most of you know, this year ran from March 12, 2021 till October 31st of 2021. And operationally, we had no issues at all. We were tasked with obviously being present and being a visual deterrent in the downtown area, being ambassadors wherever we could help, being visible. And we staffed that with our CSO2s. And of course, again, that was in the downtown area. So there's always plenty of downtown Cape folks close by. Personally, I think some of the keys of why it's such a successful year, I think it's just our 3rd year, like I said, experience. We've ironed out all the kinks with SP Plus. So I think that lent itself to a very smooth working relationship with them this year. They've increased or they've improved on some of their signage. And I will make a comment on their ambassadors that they had out in the parking lots this year. Very helpful, more of them. Their process for the kiosks and ways to pay and things like that were all seem to be upgraded. It seemed to be very helpful and a very smooth process. And I will say too, as far as the violations too, we talked about the violations last year, violations being a problem where PD employees were being called and asked to look into that. SV Plus over the last year or so has got a local office with a local phone number with plenty of signage, and it's even on the citation this year. So it took our parking enforcement coordinator didn't field, I bet, one phone call about parking violations and how to pay late fees and contest citations. So I thought that was a good point to bring up too. But operationally, no other problems. Very smooth year. And I'll kick it over to Ashley for the financial piece.
Hi, good evening. In the memo, you can see an attached multi-year review for comparing 21 and 20. You can see a marked increase in 21 from 20, and we largely attribute that to in 2020 there were safer at home orders and there weren't any special events. But in total, the 2021 parking revenue was $290,000. We had 98,000 paid vehicles come through and 3,700 residential vehicles come through. And when we look back to compare it against 2019 activity, it kind of tracked pretty closely to 2019, but we did see an uptick in the residential parking usage. So finance would recommend in future years of validating the residential parking database, like maybe once every 2 years. But all in all, it was a kind of successful season. The revenues from paid parking covered the costs of the parking division. And I'm available for any questions you might have.
I see Councilor Dumont has her hand raised.
Thanks, Mike. Ashley, is there any way to determine if the increase in residents was due to an increase in people moving to the beach? In other words, are we tracking who's using the paid parking who are residents year in, year out versus, I don't know how I want to put this. We haven't purged this. I think it's a better place to start. We haven't purged parking yet, correct?
I'll defer to Commander Shaughnessy.
Yeah, that'd be a question for Eric. I don't believe that we have wiped the spreadsheet clean and started from scratch.
No, that's correct. We still have the original one, and we were under advisement, and that came up last year, validating the parking database. So we knew it'd come up again this year. So we held off last year, but no, we still.
Okay, great. And Ashley, you think that the difference, you think that a lot of the increase in residents is really just that people who used to live here are still using their passes? Or is it just an increase in residents here, or is it an increase in residents using the parking during the prime season downtown where before they weren't?
So I do not have the answer for that because I don't have the specific data of which license plate numbers were entering and leaving the lot. Just from kind of looking at the numbers, I think that there would be value in validating that list on a kind of semi-annual basis.
Okay, and Commander Shaughnessy, you like that? I got that out in one. Does the police department have a way to determine residents if they stopped coming in 2021? So they were registered in 2019, 2020 because of COVID. They stopped coming, and then 2021 they started coming again. Because we're only looking at 2 years here. Is there a way to add in that earlier a year to see any kind of a trend?
Yeah, I would have to go back. I'm not sure. I have to go back and look at the. I'd have to go back and look at that with the spreadsheet. I'm not sure.
Okay.
But we
Thank you.
have everything, but we still have everything, and we're willing to take a look at all that.
All right. I just didn't know how the data was collected. Thank you.
Any other questions from council for staff?
I do. I'm sorry. I accidentally hit share screen instead of raising my hand. I actually feel like the resident numbers are kind of low. Is that, it's just, I mean, it's just the most I see are 652. Is that, does that seem low to anybody else? Is it just me? Am I looking at the right thing? So that's just, those are actual trips. So those are not necessarily 652 unique people, right?
I see 3,716.
For the total is the total.
For the total, right. But like in the month of April, there's 567, right?
Well,
Okay,
I guess I'm sorry, I guess my question is, if you're a resident and you have a tag, the only way they know you're there is they come and they screen your tag. You're not doing anything. So there's probably more people that come and park that aren't generating a number of revenue because you don't know they're there unless their tags are scanned.
You're correct. You could have someone who goes into the parking lot for an hour or two, never has their license plate scanned. It's never recorded that they were there. Someone else could be there for 30 minutes and have their plate scanned and only be there for the 30-minute time frame. So yeah, and I think Eric, you'd probably agree that those counts that we see under the resident counts are not discrete vehicles. They are total number of parkings observed when they did their screenshots per lot.
Correct. When the ambassador, when the SP Plus ambassadors, yes, yeah, when they ran the tag, yeah.
Okay, that I mean, just it struck me that that was low, but that makes sense that it's not every vehicle every time. My actual question was just about, I've mentioned it a few times when we've discussed parking, is potentially expanding to add additional streets and street ends in the downtown area instead of just the actual lots. Particularly of concern is the area down by Katz Marina and Margaritaville, where you have people that might be going and actually staying at a hotel and parking in a street spot and maybe staying there for a day or two. So is there any plan to expand parking to the streets and the street ends? And if so, is SP Plus the company that do they have the ability to do that expansion?
Maybe before we dive into the policy questions, Mayor, if you're okay, if any more questions of staff on the technical issues.
Sure.
And if I see Councilmember Jansen has his hand raised, but if we wanted to start diving into what the future of the program might look like from a policy perspective, we can certainly do that. Councilor Jansen, was your question related to this past year's operations, or did you want to start talking about the future of the program as well?
The future. Yeah, I was just going to comment on the direction requested.
Yeah, so the direction requested, and Mayor, you hit it on the head. There are a couple of things that have been brought up with council over the last 2 years of the parking program with regards to extending the days and/or hours of operation. Right now, we only do the parking in the summertime on Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays. We do not do it on the remainder of the weekdays. We do not currently cover on-street parking. And if you've been to other areas that have paid parking programs, it's merely a designation of those parking spaces and perhaps an installation of an additional kiosk at different locations. And then the third would be whether or not there's a proposal to change any of the rates that we currently have, either for the fractional time or full day time that people spend in the lot. So with that being said, Mayor, I think the first one that you wanted to have a conversation about was with regards to on-street parking, particularly in the area in the downtown. I believe that's on 6th, west of 1st, which is across the street from Margaritaville and between the vacant Dolphin Depot lot and the Deli-Comb type commercial strip. So we'll see what council thinks about expanding to some on-street parking areas.
You ready for me?
Yep, you've got your hand raised.
Okay, yeah, so I was, the mayor kind of touched on what I was gonna say. I think along 6th Avenue North, it's good, right there by Margaritaville, to go ahead and expand for on-street parking. Though I'm not a big fan of extending the rate or increasing the rate or extending the time in which that it applies. The only thing I would like to see as far as an increase is that street parking in that one corridor because of the corridor, because of what's there and what's happening there. But beyond that, I think things should be status quo.
Okay, thank you. Mayor Hoffman.
I wanted to agree with the rate and the times of year. I think that that's an opportunity for us to show our businesses that we're not trying to kill them in the winter months when we're not as busy. And I don't know, I guess what I'm asking specifically with regards to SP Plus, because I think we're happy with them as a contractor on this. You know, you look at Beach's Town Center and there's kiosks all over the place, and if you're kind of in their radius, you can use that parking kiosk. So I'm just wondering if they have the ability to kind of operate like that and kind of a like you're kind of in their circumference, I guess you could say, to be able to use the app or to pay for the parking or what have you. And I don't know if we can do only 6, if we would need to look at, I mean, there's a lot of on-street parking right there. So maybe that's a good place to start. And if not this year, I would say definitely whenever that Dolphin Depot construction gets going and that building starts to come online, because I think it's going to be a real mess over there for parking.
Any other thoughts by council on those topics under the direction requested? Is there a consensus to move forward with 6th Avenue and doing on-street parking? I see heads nodding. Okay, and it sounds like a consensus to leave the rates and the days per week where they are. Dr. Dumont.
Sorry, I was trying to find the little. Right. Anyway, so hello. Do we only want to do it for 6th, or do we want to do it for the one south of 6th? I don't know. It just seems weird to do it. And are you talking 6th only on the beach end, or all of 6th through 3rd? I'm just trying to get an idea of maybe just the angular parking between 1st and 2nd. So I guess this would be a little bit more detailed than what the general question that was posed was. But I just find it odd to do it on 6th between Margaritaville and Casa Marina. And then on 6th between 1st and 2nd. It's just an awkward place to pop up paid parking without doing it on like 1 or 2 of the avenues going south of that. But I am happy with the direction that I've heard so far. I would just like a little bit more clarity in that area.
Councilor Nichols?
I agree with Georgette that I think we need to do a little more analysis to do the other areas as well, even down to between 2nd and the beach. between Beach and maybe 6th or 7th North, in those parking areas to just do an analysis to see what we're going to do. Because I think from a business standpoint, if I was in one area where we're doing paid parking, we're not doing it in another area, I think it'd be unfair. I think we need to be consistent across the board if we're going to do a region.
Councilor Jansen?
Yeah, 6 could be the litmus test for us, to establish one there. And I was thinking from the ocean to at least 2nd Street. Looking at 5th Avenue North, which I'm familiar with, that's kind of in our neighborhood, 5th Avenue North and 7th Avenue North. I don't think there's a whole lot of street parking on those 2 avenues anyways. 6 has the lion's share of parking, that angular parking that Georgette was referring to, that runs between 2nd and 1st, which I think should be included. But I think that would be a good, at least a good litmus test to see how it works and how it's received, and it's a nice corridor right there to try it out.
Would council like us to work up a map of what the on-street parking might look like and bring it back to you for a thumbs up? And it sounds like when you all say that 6th Avenue corridor, it sounds like you're talking about 6th Avenue end zone, which is south of Margaritaville, all the way through the commercial between 1st and 2nd. Okay.
I guess my question doesn't the other side of Margaritaville at the end zone have parking as well?
Yeah, that was where I was going to go. What about the north side of the?
But I think that we'll get with the police department and pull up a map and all the locations that we think it might make sense for at least a phase 1 expansion of on-street parking. And we'll bring that back to council to take a look at. Either at a briefing or I'll send it all to you electronically and ask for one-on-one feedback to see if we've met the mark for a litmus test, as you all call it, to see how it works.
Mike, does it not? I'm sorry, Corey.
I'm sorry, go ahead. Go ahead.
Does it being outside of the downtown area have any impact on it?
It should not. Ashley, I don't believe the CRA pays for any of the parking program, correct?
No, the CRA does not pay for it.
Okay, thanks.
I do think a lot of people utilize those parking spaces that are staying at Margaritaville, so they don't have to pay to park in the garage. And then also, where do people typically that are staying at Casa Marina park? I mean, they don't have their own parking, do they?
They do
The
not.
same,
Across the street.
the same owners own the shopping center across the street.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Councilor Stokes.
Yeah, does that little lot that is across from I think it's the Wachovia Bank, there's that little lot on the west side of 2nd, and then on the east side of 2nd, there's another lot there, and I've never seen any paid parking signs on those lots. Are those paid parking lots or not? Because those would be 2 good expansion areas, in my opinion, because they're 2 pretty good sized lots. And I think the west side of 2nd isn't owned by Jack's Beach, but the east side of 2nd is. I'd have to recheck the the property map.
Councilor, you're referring to 2nd Ave North?
Sorry. Yeah, 2nd between 1st Ave North and 2nd Ave North and on 2nd Street.
Wells Fargo. It's the Wells Fargo Bank.
Yeah.
Wells Fargo. Yep.
Yeah. There's that one lot that I think is part of the Wells Fargo, which is on the west of 2nd, but the lot east of 2nd Street North and at the corner of 2nd Street North and 2nd Avenue South, 2nd Avenue North, sorry. I've never seen any paid parking signs there, and it's like a city lot. So I think that one would be a good expansion area.
We'll have to check that one. I'm not sure if that is a city lot or not.
That's Beachside Casuals lot. That is a city lot.
It is.
Is that the one that the church uses a lot? St. Paul's uses?
I'm not sure about that, but I know the that property directly behind Bill Stevens' place, that's a city parking lot.
A lot of people from Campeche Bay used to park back there, walk through, yeah. That lot.
Councilor Stokes, you're not referring to the northwest corner of the between First and Second where Campeche Bay is, correct? You're talking about.
It would be behind Campeche Bay, yeah.
Behind Campeche Bay. Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha. That one is a city lot. I thought you were referring to the one on the west side of Second Street.
No, there's that one on the west side, but I think that's owned by Wachovia. But the east side is our property, and I've never seen any paid parking. And that's a pretty good sized lot.
It is.
So talk about on-street parking. There's probably as many spots there as all of some of our other smaller lots that are paid for parking.
Is that a lot that council would want to take a look at, including in an area? And Mayor Hoffman?
Mr. Stokes, thanks for bringing that up because I had completely forgotten that lot wasn't on the parking program, but a little bit of history. When we had the prior parking program that was manned, we left that one off because it was a small lot compared to the larger lots that we were manning. So we just kind of left that one alone, and it probably just got lost in the shuffle when we switched programs, or maybe it was considered, but also just still because it's relatively small. But I agree that it should be added. Also, at the Wells Fargo, I noticed that there's the Wells Fargo parking lot, but then there is a strip that's separate. So you can't drive from one lot into Wells Fargo. It's a strip of, just a couple rows that is east of the Wells Fargo parking. Somebody told me that was a city lot. I've never heard it discussed as a city lot, but just out of curiosity, that would be interesting to know because people know they can park there because Wells Fargo tows, but nobody gets towed out of that spot.
That's the old Picasso Day Salon slot. So the owner of the building on the corner owns that lot. And on some weekends, he charges personally if people want to park in the lot.
Oh, I did not know that. Good to know. Thank you.
Okay. Any other thoughts on parking program before we switch gears? I think we've got a pretty good idea of what you want to see as a markup for the new territories for next year's program. We will work something up and get it out to all council to take a look at. Eric and Ashley, thank you very much.
I just pulled it up on Jack's GIS and it shows that lot is owned by Wachovia. So I'm not sure. We probably need to do a little research.
It's definitely not ours, though.
Correct.
Okay, I think we've got some pretty good direction on how to move forward on this. So thank you for your input on that. Thank you, Eric. Thank you, Ashley.
Thank you all.
We will now jump into the second item tonight, which is the update on the golf course. This is year 3 of the update. And I'm going to turn it over to Jason for a quick intro from Parks and Rec.
Thank you, sir, and good evening, Mayor and Council. I'll be brief, and then I'm going to turn it over to Bruce. A couple of things I just want to mention that, sometimes we look at income statements, balance sheets, and, we think we're in a healthy position. What they don't typically, in my mind, that is, give us is the skill and the hard work that's gone into that with the staff. And I just want to pay tribute again to both Bruce Moeller and Trevor Hughes for the work they've done. I mean, these guys are totally committed, skilled, passionate in what they do, very invested. And I run out of superlatives for what they've done. The other thing I want to say is that a couple of years ago, we got together and developed a long-range business plan for the golf course. And happy to tell council that we're on track. We're actually exceeding our plans, and we will continue with that plan into the future. At this point, I'm going to hand it over to Bruce, and then we'll be available for questions afterwards.
Okay, I'm unmuted. Can everyone hear me okay? Okay, well, thank you again. I think there's a lot of financial spreadsheets we've got on here for everybody. You can see the trends that we've got. We've been very fortunate in the last 3 years since we opened, but our financial increases from one year to the next continue to exceed what Jason was just alluding to with our financial plan. We're lucky because we've made a lot of phone calls over the last few weeks with golf lessons and a few other things as far as other municipalities go. And we've asked the question to a lot of them, are you profitable? And even during COVID, where golf has become one of the hottest things to do, very few municipalities in the state are profitable, even after COVID. So we're in a good position. I think we've had a tremendous amount of help from council to get everything approved that we needed to get done in order for these financials to come through. So for that, we thank you, of course. The dynamic pricing, you see the big increase of $600,000 in revenue plus for fiscal year 21. The dynamic pricing model that you all approved in November of last year has worked tremendously. We've been able to adjust up and down as needed to try to get supply and demand somewhat mitigated. If there is such a thing with 67,000 rounds last year, I think we probably turned away, talking to the staff on a weekly basis, that I think we turned away, close to 30,000 rounds last year. And it's a tremendous number. That's really just taking the phone calls that we take. That's not taking into account people that go online and can't book because we're busy. We've still yet to find a golf course in this country that did more rounds than we did in the last 3 years. So, the rounds and the revenue continue to go to extremes that, we're trying to wrap our head around, trying to get the staff to stay committed to what we're doing and understanding that everyone's here working for the same common goal. The driving range increases that we've got, yes, I think COVID had a lot to do with it. COVID, basically everyone who couldn't get on the golf course went to the driving range. So you see the numbers are staggeringly high at $365,000. Our first year we did 192. So it's, the turf mat that we improved, that we got finally installed in August of this year, has been a tremendous help. Huge advantage. There's a lot of people that used to call us and say, are you on the grass or are you on the artificial? And when we said we're on the artificial, they'd go somewhere else. So the improved turf that we installed, the mats, the roof, the metal coverings we've got, and now we've got music and speakers out there to help us not just have music and relaxing atmosphere, but also allow our starters and our staff to call people 942, please come to the tee, or walk up John Smith, we've got a spot for you, please report to the tee. So it's really made us be a lot more efficient from the speaker side of it, the turf, and also the covering. Our operating costs are obviously higher, as when you increasingly have this many more rounds, it requires more pencils, more scorecards, more staff, more labor, more resources. So that's why some of those operating costs have gone up a little bit. As far as business plan that we've got for improvements in the future, all of this is self-sustained. This is everything that we've got in the bank account right now. We've got a plan for it. All the improvements that we've got on the golf course, the pro shop, everything that we have slated is all being paid for by what we're saving right now, plus our, close to $500,000 in case we have any kind of major storm or, some sort of emergency situation with regards to weather, economic downturn, anything that we need to, we've got it set aside right now. And that's what we continue to plan to have moving forward, is have something that we are self-sustaining, not necessarily needing to borrow from the general fund, and, continue to have this, like Jason mentioned, our business plan model for the next 5, 10, 15 years. Because there will be a renovation at some point. I know we just went through one, but like most of you know, only 30% of the golf course was touched during the renovation, and there's major projects still need to get done. We are in the process, actually this week, of finishing some cart path improvements. Some cart paths were removed during the renovation. We're doing everything we can to mitigate some of these drainage issues we can with some of these cart paths being removed, and now we're adding it back, and all this is being paid for by the money that we set aside. A couple of points I'd like to make is, this is kind of a fun thing. I've got charts and graphs and all kinds of numbers in front of me, but the one that I think that we're the most proud of is since we started in 2018, when we had a full year under our belt, we have yet to have 1 month that we didn't exceed that month's revenue from the year prior. Not 1 month. So that's, we're going on 38 months now, and that's a pretty good chart. I think that's also included in here. Even during COVID, when we got killed as far as carts go, that we had to limit to 1 cart per person, or we couldn't have 2 people per cart. That basically kills your cart fleet in half. You just reduce your cart fleet from 70 to 35. So for us to do some of these numbers we've done and continue to grow is a huge testament to the staff, the starters that are there sun up to sundown, because we have people wanting to tee off at 5:30 when they get started at 5:40. I know it sounds a little bit awkward, but it is what it is. And then moving forward, where we are right now, this chart that shows the increase on a monthly basis doesn't show October, November, but October, November, we are up 15% in October, 14% in November, and 23% in December. So the trend of us improving from 1 month to the next from the year prior is continuing here. And I'm guessing at some point that'll flatten. I'm not exactly sure when that'll be. When will COVID and the demand for golf decrease in Jacksonville Beach? I wish I had an answer for you. But right now, we're doing the best we can with the staff we've got, the resources that are available, and I think we've got a golf course that you all can be very proud of. So at this point, I'll take any questions.
Councilor Jansen, followed by Councilor Nichols.
Yeah, first off, Bruce, let me just commend you on doing an outstanding job. I'm pretty impressed, and you and your staff are doing amazing work over there, and thank you. Just a real quick question, the pro shop, how's the funding for that going, and the purchasing of merchandise, and is there room for expansion? Do we need to look at that, or are we good? Are we on par? Pardon the pun.
Good pun, I like it. Yeah, I think there's a couple of things that we're subject to as far as spending goes that we're going to be addressing here in the next couple of months, purchasing guidelines that we're going through. But I have to say, purchasing department, accounting and finance have all been terrific. We wouldn't have these numbers without their support. So yes, there's a few things that we've been working through for the last 3 years since I got there. But I think we're on the same page, and moving forward, I think we're in a good position to do the best we can to let us continue driving the way we are.
Councilor Nichols, followed by Councilor Meza.
Again, I just want to thank y'all for all the effort and everything. I think it's just absolutely amazing the turnaround this golf course has made over the last couple of years since y'all have been involved. Just incredible job. The only question I had was just, how's the relationship with the restaurant going? How's that working into the current situation? Are y'all happy with the people running it? Quality of food, and just give me just an update on the restaurant. But thanks again for everything y'all are doing out there. It's fantastic.
Thank you. We had a change of ownership a month ago or so, back in October, and Greg Pratt basically took over the restaurant that he is the owner of Sneakers Bar and Grill. They've had a new change of management, new people, new personnel, new policies, procedures, menus. So it's a little bit early, 2 months, a little bit over 2 months into their new stint. But so far we're getting activated. I mean, there's always work to be done, right? There's always room for improvement. We've had a few technological things available to them that they haven't taken advantage in the past that they are now. So we just started this a couple weeks back. We needed to get our resources and procedures in place before we launched it. But basically now the golfers can actually order food from the GPS screen. And we've got menus at different times of the day to pop up at different holes, so they can order, and instantly a printer in the food and beverage operation will tell them what cart ordered what items, what the total cost does, and where they are. So now the food and beverage operation, as most communities can do, as you can imagine, right, can actually print out this receipt and physically take the food and drinks to the golfer, because we know what cart number they're in, we know what their names are. So we've got a pretty good system working right now that I wish we would have started, a while back, but it's taken, baby steps. It's been 3 years. It seems like a lot longer sometimes, but they've acclimated pretty well, and they've, bought into what we're trying to do. I think they're a good partner moving forward. And I think they're, trying to get adjusted to the volume of the people we're throwing their way, because, 67,000 people just playing golf, not to mention the people coming to the range. That's a lot of people. So them trying to figure out who needs to be where at what time, and that's going to take some time. I think we're a step in the right direction. Greg Pratt and his team are committed and devoted to making us look good, and that's all I can ask at this point. So yeah, we're happy with them.
Great. Thank you very much.
Councilor Meza, followed by Hoffman.
Yes, hello. I just want to say that the golf course has made a 180-degree turn from what it was before, from what I remember when I was in my early 20s and my Navy days, and when we used to go there, and it looks phenomenal. I know I keep getting compliments from people that are playing at the golf course, from the greens, the staff members who are there taking care of it. So I am very happy with how it's going. Question, did you just say that you haven't been able to find any other golf course in the country that has had them as many rounds as Jacksonville Beach? Is that correct? Is that a lot? I mean, is that a good thing? Obviously.
Well, first I'd take a moment and say thank you to Trevor. Trevor couldn't be with us tonight, but Trevor and his crew we're very fortunate to have them in what they do. I mean, Trevor's knowledge and professionalism and how he handles the golf course. I'm lucky. I've been with him for 20 plus years. I'm in a position where, as you know, as a golfer, if the greens aren't good or if the golf course is bad, you're going to hear from the customer. And I've been fortunate for 20 plus years to never have a customer come in and complain about the golf course conditions. So kudos to Trevor and his crew, Drew Keenan, everyone does. Sam does such a great job day in and day out, somewhat limited on time. I think we've got, a good sized crew, but for the work that they do, you'd think we'd have double the staff that we do. So yes, thank you, Trevor and his staff, for allowing all this to happen. As far as, yes, that is correct. I said, we've got a few leagues that play here that also play in different parts of the country. And I have yet to hear of one golf course that has done more rounds than us in the last 3 years. And is it a good thing? Well, if we look at the financials, yes, it's a good thing. But down the line, and we've said this, Mayor Hoffman will remember this from the first day, that we need less golfers, right? So we're going to have to do things to mitigate. We really don't want to go up on the rates a whole lot. We are a municipal golf course. We want to cater to our customers. But at the same time, we have to find ways of somewhat limiting. I think we turned away more rounds of golf than the average 18-hole golf course does last year. So we're going to try to get creative, and we do things, and we have been doing things the last couple of years to mitigate play, whether it's blocking certain tee times to make sure we have a certain number of rounds per day, per week, based on the time of year, growing conditions. So we've been doing what we can to still stop it. We could be doing more, but I'm not sure that that's the position we want to be in. We want to have a good conditioned golf course that everyone here can be proud of, make the work manageable for Trevor and his crew and our staff. So yes, it is an astronomically high number to do 67,000 rounds and turn away that many. And as long as I'm here, we're going to try to do the best we can to keep the condition what it is, and Trevor's crew, give them all the resources they need from a labor side of it and from equipment side of it to make sure that that is a goal, because that's, condition of the golf course is, A1 primary.
Well, I'm very proud of all the work you guys have been doing and continue to do. Second question: How long is the contract with Sneakers? Is it a year?
Yeah, we just signed it. The existing contract was the first 3 years, and the first 3 years expired on September 30th. We renewed a new 4-year contract as of October 1st of this year, and then there's an automatic renewal for 4 more years after that. And then with Mike Stefopoulos' help, there's, with his leadership and guidance, we will see if it extends past that. But right now, we've got them for the next 4 years, and we'll go from there.
All right. Thank you so much. Proud of you guys.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Mayor Hoffman.
Well, after 5 or 6 years of gloom and doom reports from the golf course, I'm never going to miss the opportunity to join in the praise. And I can probably speak for all of us to say that we're not just hearing from you guys about the golf course, we're hearing from the citizens and the golfers, and it's resoundingly positive. And that is just such a sea change from what we were getting before. Before it was kind of a little bit of a shame of Jacksonville Beach, and now it's a gem. So thank you guys all. It's not just about the investments that we've made, but it's about the people that are continuing the work. So thank you for that. And I was going to ask about the restaurant. Has already been broached. I think that's such an area of opportunity, not just for their revenue, but for the experience of the golfer, and not even just the golfer, but anybody who's in that vicinity, which it's hundreds of parents and sports leagues and whatever else. So it could be still a real opportunity. It's good to hear that they're going in the right direction. Also good to hear that they're finally using that GPS service that was part of the selling point when we approved it, was that the golfers could order food and get it delivered. So, I know sometimes technology takes a while to adopt. So I'm glad to hear it's going in the right direction. And I hope that it will continue to do so. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments from council on the golf course? Okay, hearing none. Thank you, Bruce. Appreciate everything you and Trevor have done over this past year. And thank you, Jason, for sponsoring this item on here tonight. I did want to let council know this is with the golf course being in the position that it's in, this is the last time we will probably have a formal briefing as an annual update. From here forward, you may just receive a memo that summarizes the activities for the previous year. But they're on a good path. The only time we'll come back is if we have something major that we need to discuss with council with regards to the golf course in either its operations and or capital programs. So thank you, Bruce. Appreciate it. Thank you, Jason.
Of course.
And I guess from here we move on to our third and final item of the night, which is going to be Beaches Energy Strategic Plan. This is something Beaches Energy has been working on for a while with some of our third-party consultants. And I will turn it over to Alan to give a little intro and then go through his slide presentation. Alan, the floor is yours.
Yeah, so I'm kind of seeing if I can share my screen. Right now it's disabled, so.
Something you can authorize for Alan?
Yep, Alan, I thought I was sharing it, but you're good to go either way.
If you got it, go ahead and do it if you got it. Okay, so like Mike said, we've been working on this for quite a long time. We actually started right before COVID hit, so it's dragged out much longer than we expected. But next slide, please. So we worked with Beach Energy. We worked with 1898 and Company, which is a consulting firm, along with Florida Municipal Power Agency as kind of like the facilitator of the discussion and moderator of discussion. We focused on priorities for the system that enables the Beaches Energy to thrive over at least a 5-year period. Honestly, we discussed really out to 35 years because there's some big ticket items that we have to maintain over that 35-year term. It was a good team effort. It included Mike and Karen at the leadership level, Ashley and AJ, and all of my supervisory staff worked on developing this plan along with our consultants. We're in a good, strong position financially. There are going to be some challenges ahead with trying to invest at this level. So we are talking about some rate increases. There would be a baseline rate increase of just 4% in 2026, just to keep doing what we're doing today. And to add the supportive scenario, which is above and beyond what we're doing now and what we need to do, we're looking at approximately a 5% rate adjustment in 2025. Next slide, please. So we're going to talk a little bit about the planning process and the priorities. We're in good shape. I mean, Beaches Energy, as far as reliability, we're 60% better than the industry average. We do much better than the investor-owned utilities in the state. We're competitive on price. As you can see, Beaches Energy right there is a little bit less than the IOU average. However, the investor owns, I believe if I did my math correctly, I did some quick math right before I came on, Duke Energy has a 7.2% increase coming January 1, and they're well above us already. And FPL, which is really what keeps the IOU average down. They're about a little bit cheaper than what we are today per 1,200 kilowatt hours. They have 11 to 12% price increase January 1, along with incremental increases over the next 2 to 3 years. So they'll come out much higher than we will over the long term. As far as clean power, you can see that we've reduced CO2 emissions since 2005 by 35%, and that's mainly due to moving away from coal to natural gas and nuclear. Next slide, please. So it was essential to plan for continued future success. We looked at the things we've been doing in the past. We knew we had to make changes. You know, when I got there, I kind of knew we weren't focused on substations, we weren't focused on transmission. So we talked about, you know, what we need to do moving forward. This plan informs concerning realistic goals and what our growth options are, and it forecasts results for financial management going forward. And it's really provides for information for decision making going forward. Next slide. So we partnered with our stakeholders, like I said, Florida Municipal Power Agency, which is our joint action agency, along with 1898 and Company, which is a division of Burns and McDonnell, and they're the consulting arm of that organization. And the goal was, you know, continue to provide low cost, reliable power to our customers. And like I said, we looked over really initially a 5-year planning horizon, but we took a look out to even 35 years from now. Next slide, please. These are the main things we looked at were system reliability. You know, we've already invested heavily in reliability of our electric system, mostly in the distribution side, but the transmission and substation side, we fell a little short over the last couple of decades, and that's going to need to be remedied rather quickly and going forward. Workforce needs and retention. We're going to need the human capital to maintain and improve performance. And there's areas like such as compliance and engineering where we're going to need help going forward to actually implement the changes that we need to make. Technology adoption and efficiency. You know, we plan to introduce the right tools at the right time, but always balanced by costs. So, you know we can make decisions to add things later rather than sooner if in need we need to for economics. And of course, reasonable rates. We always want to add value, but we want to maintain affordability for our owners and customers. Next slide. So baseline capital outlay aligns with our priorities. As you can see, the main areas for investment are distribution, transmission, and substations, and that's pretty much what we've been doing over the last 5 years or 7 years since I arrived here. There's a couple smaller investments in smart grid and communication infrastructure, vehicle replacement programs to make sure that we have vehicles that don't break down and they're available. And we need to make some improvements in our system operations for them to be able to do some remote type operations rather than sending orders out into the field and waiting until people get where they need to be. We can do things much faster with some automation. And of course, regulatory compliance is always going to be a concern going forward. Things change every year. Standards change, requirements change from NERC and CERC. So next slide. We have an aging system. Of course, we always have to drive reliability, but with investment. So, transformers, cables, poles, those things have to be replaced on an ongoing basis. We use preventive maintenance quite a bit to extend the life of our assets, and we have a really good plan in place to be able to track and decide when we need to do those things. We've still continued to gradually transition from overhead to underground. You might have seen recently, like Jacksonville Drive is finally going underground, and there's some other strategic locations that we are going to target. One of the big ones is east of Solano, adjacent to Salt Creek. There's 3 main distribution circuits that run through there. The plan is over the next 10 or 12 years to put that all underground, which would improve reliability greatly, especially post a hurricane event or a major event. Sectionalizing our power lines for faster rest. Those are what I'm talking about, the automatic type reclosers where they can be operated remotely. So once something's out, you can close it back in and restore without a person ever having to visit it. And secondly, our transmission system. We have sections of our system that are 40 years old. I mean, there's poles that need to be replaced. There's connections that need to be worked. There's conductor that needs to be replaced. We're going to use visual and infrared inspection like we've done in the past, some drone technology to help us address those issues and proactively maintain that. Next slide, please. We'll continue to fortify our substations. We've done quite a few projects the last couple of years on our Sampson project, our Sampson substation, our Fort Diego substation. We'll be heavily focused on replacing substation transformers, like I said, for the next really 35 years. That's the primary driver of our increased and significant long-term capital expenditures. I talked a little bit about smart grid and communication infrastructure. This is some of the stuff that Matt Sealy works on, where we've got antennas up on Margaritaville, and we're going to extend our communications network to not only assist Beaches Energy with being more efficient in operations, but also the rest of the city. So next slide. Like I said, our vehicle replacement program, vehicles that do not suffer excessive breakdowns and they're ready to go and we need them. SCADA operations, improve our SCADA so that it's fused with our distribution management system so that we can operate devices remotely and be able to restore power quicker. We're going to set funds aside to address physical and or cyber and physical security. Really on the SCADA side, that's physical security. And on the regulatory compliance side, that's really our cyber security. Like I said, those requirements change on an annual basis and they get tougher every year to meet. Next slide, please. So the supportive scenarios, these are what are layered in above the baseline expenditures. Like I said, we would have to increase rates about 4% to maintain the baseline, but 5% in 2025 to be able to do these additional items that we're looking, for example, substation fortification. Two of the projects that we've targeted coming up soon are Jacksonville Beach T1 transformer and Sampson T1. As you recall, we replaced T2 at Sampson just a few years ago. This would be our second major transformer in our biggest substation. In order to do that, we probably are going to need to add one FTE as far as substation engineering is concerned. And secondly, at some point in the near future, we're going to need another full-time employee in the position of a compliance engineer to assist with all the requirements coming forth from NERC and FERC and CERC regarding cybersecurity and other measures that they're proposing. Technology, we're looking at sharing costs with customer service on an IVR. As you know now, when a customer calls and they have an outage, they've got to wait for someone to answer the phone to report the outage. An IVR system would just allow people just to call in and it would automate the ticket process for them to report an outage, and would help us identify the location much quicker. And then there were two other scenarios that we looked at, but based on costs and what they provided to our customers in our city, we decided we wouldn't recommend them for inclusion at this time. Just a little bit about what I was talking about earlier. If you look at all these transformer replacements and when they're planned and look at their projected end of life, we don't catch up until 2035, 2040. So this is something that's really, really important, and we cannot get any further behind on this. If we do, we run the risk of having a catastrophic failure of one of these transformers. So I just wanted you to take a look at that and see how it's pretty serious. We're fortunate that we did some work at Sampson and we did some work at Diego, but we have a lot more to do in especially the next decade and a half. So next slide. Estimated rate impacts. We are going to need to raise rates. And I know Mike wanted me to throw this caveat in, is that, this 4 to 5% increase is really just for these projects. It has nothing to do with the price of gas or where things are going now. So any other increase would be in addition to this, and this would just be basically to do these projects that we've identified here. And like we said, just for the baseline, we'd probably need to increase rates about 4% in 2027. But with those additional three scenarios, we're looking at 5% in 2025, or even sooner would probably be smarter. But we'll be taking a further look like that. But that's where we think we need to believe we believe we need to be. Next slide, please. And Ashley can probably speak more to this than I can, but we are going to need to raise rates. And that second scenario where you see the arrow, net revenue, unrestricted fund balance continues to decline without the rate increase. So the rate increase would be something we would need to do to maintain healthy financials. So I already kind of mentioned this earlier. FPL and Duke are already planning on an increase. The increases that came forward were much more than what's identified here. Like I said, Duke, they were projecting a 3 to 4%. I said that 7.2 is what it came down to be, and it's been approved by the Public Service Commission. FPL, it's a little bit more than $13. It's more like 15 or 16. That's 11 or 12% increase, and that's just for this upcoming year. I know FPLs will be challenged, but as you can see, everybody, there's rate pressure on all of us, but the rate pressure that we have to do this project, it would be minimal compared to what these other utilities are doing, and we would still be much lower than all four of them, all four IOUs. So we think this path forward reflects a bright future for Beaches Energy. I mean, we're already in good shape. We can be in much better shape, moving forward with this plan. We prioritize the plan elements. We can move forward with execution on time, within budget, to deliver the results that we expect. We'll move forward with incremental scenarios, making sure that if it does come a time where we're challenged financially, we can always reshuffle what we need to do, and it enables low-cost, clean, reliable power to our customers, and that's what they expect. And lastly, it maintains and enhances the value of Beaches Energy to the city of Jacksonville Beach and our owners. And scenario A, these are the other two scenarios that we looked at but did not include. We were talking about expanding maybe an EOC or some type of SCADA building out at our Sampson substation. The cost is pretty it's a pretty high cost to do that, and we'd have to do a lot of other work to even determine if we could even use that space. A lot of it out there is swampy. So, and then go ahead to the next slide. And we considered insourcing vegetation management to bring tree crews in-house to trim trees, but at this time, it's something we're gonna continue to look at over the next few years, and we'll decide at some point in the future whether that's a good idea and whether it's feasible for the city. And at that time, I'll take any questions.
Thank you, Alan. And before we kick it over to questions, just to reiterate what Alan was talking about on the financial impacts, the majority of the number crunching that was done as part of this study took place before we got into a situation of hyperinflation with regards to materials and labor starting to spike over the last couple of months. So those estimates that you see on there for the 4% increase in 2027 or the 5% in 2025, those are probably low-end numbers. If the trend continues for the next several months to possibly a year or longer, there's every possibility or probability that those numbers would only increase from here. So we just wanted to make sure you understood that the financial analysis that was performed was before we got into the situation of inflation that we're currently in right now. And with that, we'll start it off with Councilmember Jansen, followed by Councilmember Dumont.
Two quick things, Alan. One's just a comment. I'd like to see a breakout of the costs of upgrading the substations when the time comes and what that looks like. And then the second thing is, do you have any idea of the percentage of above ground versus underground in our city, as far as how are we 50-50, or an educated guess if you have it?
Yeah. So we'd always bring any new transformer project to council. Generally, those costs have been in the past anywhere between $1 and $3 million just to buy the transformer. I'm expecting with the increase in materials that we're seeing, we're probably looking at 30 to 40% higher prices just for the purchase of the transformers. Regarding the percentage of underground, our system overall is about 85% underground, and that's pretty consistent from city to city. I think it's anywhere between 82 and 86, 85, 86. So we've done a good job of making sure each city has as much underground as the other, so that we've been fair to all of our customers.
Thank you. That was good. Very good presentation too as well. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Councilor Dumont.
Thank you. Alan, what would you say is your biggest challenge in the future? Like you mentioned, there were a lot of them. What is your biggest challenge in the future, and what is your current weakness, the main current weakness internally with regard to the strategic plan? So what do we need to fund? What can we do to help you deal with that main challenge in the future?
So I guess I'd answer it this way. If you're asking what keeps me up at night, it's our substations, just because they were behind when I got here. They're behind now on renewal. And if we don't address it, I can see a day where we have a failure, and we lose our reputation overnight. So it's reputational risk and not being able to serve our customers. That's our biggest concern. I don't think it's a challenge for staff, because we do those projects like EPC, engineer, procure, construct. So it's not really a staffing issue. It's just a timing issue of getting it all done in a short period. And you can't really condense it down. So that's what the challenge is trying to get those things done. So my point is, in the next 10 plus years, we have to hit those marks and replace all those transformers. Because that'll at least get us to a point where, we're reliable.
Yeah, I would have put that as an internal weakness, the age of substations, because we can control that. And, we can control it. Might, not nicely, but we can. But when I say challenges external to the city, things that we can't control coming down the pike, what do you see as one of the main challenges with Beaches Energy in the future that you can't control, but you need to be able to have a plan in place if it happens?
I think that it's going to be cybersecurity is the main one, because it changes every year, and the requirements that CERC puts out and NERC puts out are very vague. So you think you're meeting them, and then when you go in front and you get audited, they're like, well, no, you should have gone above and beyond that. So it's a hard target to hit. So we've always tried to err on the side of caution and let's go above and beyond what they ask, so that we always stay ahead of the game. And so that's number one. The second one really is going to be the availability and pricing of materials to make all the things that we need. I mean, transformers, they have, some rare earth metals, and those are getting, the price of those are very high, and the supply chains are stressed. And I think that's going to be a challenge.
Great, thank you.
I'll give you an example. We've already ordered, we're in the process of ordering all our transformers for this year, because we don't know when we're going to get them. So that's the challenge we face right now.
Thanks, Alan. I just was trying to get a better idea. The resources are limited, and I just wanted to know what we need to focus on with our limited resources. If we can only do a couple things in the strategic plan in the future, what do we really need to hone in on? So I thank you for that.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Councilor Mays, followed by Mayor Hoffman.
Yes, Mr. Putman, you said you lose sleep on the substation. I said we were behind when you took over, and we're still behind. How long until we're able to be ahead, or at least close to being where we want to be?
Like I said, I think it'll be about 10 years. If we can get one new transformer in each of our substations. So we've already got one in Sampson. We'll be working on Diego and then Jack's Beach. So if we had one new one in each substation, we're already redundant in all our substations. So that would give me, some ease. It would set my mind at ease knowing that, one did fail, we could still make it. We'd have to switch around some the way we feed customers, but we'd be okay for a while. So that's about 7 to 10 years.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Mayor Hoffman.
Well, don't tell the golf course guys I said this, but Beaches Energy is the real gem of Jacksonville Beach. So thank you. This is a great document. It's apparent that a ton of effort and thoughtfulness went into it, and it's really great to be able to see it summarized like that. Just a quick question. When we talked about our city's mission statement, we put sustainability in there, and which means a lot of different things, even in this context. But I think we probably all thought about Beaches Energy. The reducing the CO2 emissions, it's down, but do you expect that to be a trend? And is there anything else that you foresee coming that would speak to sustainability?
So, we're still in the process of closing coal plants in Florida. And, we still do have shares. We own shares of some of these coal plants. The Stanton coal plant in Orlando is one of the, the dirtiest plant left in Florida, and that is soon to be closed. So we're still working towards that. We've been pushing that closure to be sooner rather than later, but that's a hard thing to do. You have to build something else before you can close something. The other thing is, to be more sustainable, nuclear is the answer. I mean, it's carbon free. But I think in this country, the challenge is, how do we get there? How do we make the process of building a nuclear power plant much quicker than it is now? And the regulations are just so vast and take so long. It takes, a decade to build one. In China, they build them in 2 years, 3 years. So, we need to get there. That's zero carbon, and renewables aren't going to be able to cover the entire load that we need in this country, especially when we're talking 100% EVs in 10 years. That'll double our generation requirement in this country, double, and it can't be done with solar and wind. So we are going to have to look at nuclear in the future. So.
And for the mayor and council's benefit, and Alan, chime in and correct me if I get anything wrong here. But when we met with, it was FMEA a couple of months ago, one of the analyses in their annual report was the cost of achieving incremental carbon reductions. And obviously the goals that have been set within our industry or within our organization are ones that were deemed realistic and reasonable with regards to the impacts on rates for the local providers. It's one thing to say, let's go to 50 or 70% CO2 emission reduction. But if the result is doubling or tripling the power costs to our customers, have we done them any favors in the process? So they certainly have done a detailed analysis of what appears to be the most reasonable in terms of CO2 reduction, while not crippling the costs to our customer base, not just for us, but for all of the others that are in our association as well. So Alan, I don't know if you wanted to touch on that. That was part of that. I'm trying to remember what the slogan was, 30, 40, 50 or.
Yeah. I remember we talked about it. So the key point from that was, if we reduce carbon emissions by 40 to 60%, you're looking at more than doubling your utility bill. If you go above that and you start, because you're going to have to replicate more and more plants just to meet the demand when the wind's not blowing and the sun's not shining, you're talking about 4 times the cost by 2030. And a lot of people in Florida can't afford that. I mean, they're gonna have to choose between food and medicine or energy. And that's not something I think we can do to our citizens.
Thank you. Councilor Jansen?
Yeah, Mike, a question for you. I don't have my notes readily available for me. The COVID relief funds, can any of that be applied towards any of this, or any of these projects earmarked in that relief fund?
They are not. We went through that document. I know it's on the line, but we went through that document to look at where we felt we could apply the funds, and there were a lot of things that were excluded, and one of them was Beaches Energy. It would have been nice to have applied some, not only in their department, but some of our other departments as well. But unfortunately, they're just not geared for that.
Sadly.
Any other questions or comments for Alan after his presentation? Hearing none. Alan, thank you very much. Appreciate you giving them the update on this.
Welcome.
So with that being said, that wraps up our agenda for tonight, because you'll notice there's only 3 items on the agenda. There are no report outs, and there are no future briefing topic items. So I want to thank council for your attendance at tonight's briefing. Look forward to potentially seeing some of you at the employee breakfast on Wednesday morning over at the exhibit hall. And we will see you all in person next Monday, 6 o'clock in the council chambers for our normal council meeting.
And I hope that some of you can join us for the Penman Road community meeting on Wednesday at 5:30 as well.
5:30 to 6:30 in council chambers for that one as well. So with that, everybody have a great evening, and